What up, nerds? Welcome to another self-inflicted episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 303, recorded Sunday, January 24th, 2021. Tonight, we're going to be talking about another Patreon pick. This one was chosen by the one, the only, Hydra Berg. The movie is Timecrimes. And before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
How's it going, boys?
It's going well.
I see you guys got the blues back behind you.
The blues are back in town.
Quite literally, the blues are back in town.
Blues are back in town. You're welcome.
See. How'd you manage that? Insurance, I assume?
Yeah, we just, we crashed that jet ski and then... I don't know. I guess some of us had life insurance policies. I'm not really sure who it was. I
guess some of us, we are committed to the bit.
Yeah,
okay.
I got my blues back, so no big deal. Last but not least, calling in from the Saxonville, Florida, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up, bitch? Your boy Paradox Stains. Let me ask you boys a question. There's a bottle of soju in an unopened box. Is it empty or full?
Both.
Schrodinger's soju.
Schrodinger's soju.
Sojinger. God no.
Scrotum soju.
That's got to be workshopped. Yeah, scrotum soju. That's a new flavor exclusively for my boy Stains.
Nobody's drinking that. You're not selling any of that. The soju's dead.
Complimentary
and alive.
pubes.
Oh God. This is a great start to an episode.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you what.
Have we ever had a good one?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. One or two out of 303. Before we get into the main event, let's go ahead and tackle some housekeeping real quick. Here is one more reminder. We currently have our February poll pick posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this February. The theme and all three movies for February were chosen by none other than Soju himself. What might we be discussing, Juice?
Robert, I chose to talk about thrillers.
And demonetized.
Yep. Yep.
The three movies that I picked to talk about were Seven, No Country for Old Men, and Old Boy, the OG Bish. Korean version. Yep.
I'm surprised you didn't go for all three movies with the word "old" in the title. You're aiming for that hat trick,
old
but you're not
man,
quite there.
Old Bish,
old seven.
The old seven, right, boys?
The old seven.
Bob, can you tell me how are those numbers looking so far?
Old Boy's got it in the bag, man.
Yeah, that's pretty much been on top the whole month.
Yeah. Old Bish is kicking some ass.
Looks like we're talking about Old Bish next month.
Old Bish.
Bring your ball peen hammers, ladies and gents.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got one more week to get your votes in. February 1st, we'll have a new poll posted. Who knows what the theme's going to be? We sure don't. Find out.
Yeah, we actually don't.
We won't know until just before the next episode.
Juice, you have some YouTube news, right?
Yes, boys. Guess what? We
I
hit
won't.
the 1,000 mark.
Oh my God.
Yeah. On the YouTubes. Thank you for that proper bump. So,
yeah.
Let's take a little time and talk about the housekeeping. The rebrand has made its way over to the YouTube. It is still in works, but all of the new videos are going to be looking super fresh. So if you didn't know, on YouTube, here is what we are offering over there. One, in the red color, you can get our regular podcast, what you would hear on Spotify or everything else. There's no visuals. It's just the audio podcast. So if for some reason you like to listen to your podcast on YouTube, we got you covered. That is going to be in the red.
We embrace alternate lifestyles here at Straight Chilling.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Also, coming out around the same time is going to be the behind the scenes. That's going to be in like the tan color. I guess we call it a tan, Randy, Mr.
I calls
Designer.
it cream.
Cream. We're talking cream. So in the cream color,
Screaming and creaming.
it's going to be the behind the scenes. That's going to be coming out with the episodes. And that is when we have our camera set up for these casts. So You can see our faces if that's what you're into.
And you can see our blues, baby.
And Bob's Blues. Yeah, this week you can see Bob's Blues. Also, in the green, we have all of our video game reviews that we've done so far. So that's horror video games. And if you didn't know, we do have 16 horror video game reviews up on our YouTube. That's some exclusive content, stuff we haven't really done on the podcast or anything like that. So some of the games we talked about, like the BioShock trilogy, a handful of Resident Evils, things like Little Nightmares, Limbo, Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th. So there are some horror video game reviews up there. That's in the green color. And finally, in the purple color, is going to be the top 5 videos. So every first of the month, first Tuesday of the month, top 5 Tuesday, you get top 5 lists. So some we have up right now are top 5 Korean horror films, top 5 horror comedies, top 5 underrated Halloween films. So stuff like that. And right now there are 13 of those available, and those come out once a month. So that's some of the exclusive content we have up there. We've been talking about some other options as well. Another thing that we're starting to do too, this is going to be on the behind the scenes, the cream, and on the red, the regular podcast. We are now, boys, moving up to the big leagues, Amazon affiliates.
Wow.
So in the link, yeah,
can't wait to make Papa Bezos some money.
Ooh, rolling in it.
Daddy B.
So in the
Give
link,
it to me, Daddy B.
Oh, God.
Bob is going to like this because he's supporting other people's habits just like his. In the description of every YouTube video, we're going to have a link to the Blu-ray. So if you are interested in purchasing this, we will have a link in the behind the scenes and in the regular podcast episode. So you can click that. And if you end up purchasing it or whatever, we get a little bit of a kickback. So if you want to like help the podcast out without having to do anything else, if you're going to buy the movie anyways, then that's something you can do, and we make it easy for you to find. And also on there is, we've got a couple questions about this, mostly from other podcasters, but we also have our equipment on there now in the description. I'm going to be adding to that soon, but this type of stuff we use to make the podcast. People ask about that sometimes, what kind of mics we use, what kind of computers, cable, stuff like that.
Mixer.
So, yeah.
Double-edged dilders.
Those things. Yeah, those are the most important for making this podcast run. But those are also going to be in all the YouTube videos as well in the description, so you can check that out. And I think my house is clean. Anybody else got any filthy houses?
I
do, but it's not for public consumption.
Not yet. That's the extra behind the scenes, the behind the scenes.
That's for when I forget to turn off the camera later.
Oh, Randy. Whoa. Clean that house.
That's why we run the behind the scenes now. We missed a couple of those.
I do have one more thing to mention real quick. Mikey and I over at Let's Get Physical Media just dropped a new episode, episode number 16. We talk about our December 2020 pickups, and we also talk about our top 10 Blu-ray releases of 2020. So if you are a collector, horror specifically, we talk about some other stuff too, but primarily horror. You can find Let's Get Physical Media anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, all that shit. So check us out.
That's also the episode where Bob explains how he got all his blues back.
That's right, and I know everybody wants to know.
It's a lore-intensive episode.
Right. Just mindless babbling, really, is what it is.
Walk through the candy cane forest.
I do believe this house is clean.
This house is clean.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to the main event. We're talking about Timecrimes this week, as was chosen by Hydraberg. Thank you again, Hydraberg, for supporting us on the Patreon and picking yet another movie for us to talk about.
Hail, Hydraberg.
Let's go ahead and kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Yeah. Timecrimes from 2007. This was written and directed by Nacho Vigalondo. It stars a whole bunch of people that I can't say their names, so I'm not going to try.
Nacho Vigilando.
Nacho Vigilante.
Nacho Vigilando.
My boy Nacho.
Vigilante Nachos.
Jesus.
Nacho Belgrande.
Okay, that's enough.
There's no reason to get into the Baja Blast area of this conversation.
That is Nacho Vigilando. That's my Vigilando. The plot synopsis is as follows. A man accidentally gets into a time machine and travels back in time nearly an hour. Finding himself will be the first of a series of disasters of unforeseeable consequences. I feel like he went back in time a little bit more than an hour. I mean, not like much further, but I don't know. That's what it says on IMDb. Whatever.
67.3 minutes.
I don't know. I think he specifically. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter that much.
Short amount of time.
Yeah, not much. General Mangs, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, what you think?
No, I had not seen this film before. I will say I don't think that I had ever heard of this film until we were told to watch it by Hale Heidelberg, and yeah, I think I'd recommend it. Yeah, it's. I mean, I always try and qualify it for the right person, but I think this is kind of a decent baseline sort of thriller horror. I wouldn't say it's extremely graphic in the way that other films are, and I wouldn't say that it's extremely impactful, but it does have good mind-bending qualities to it. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, I would say yes, for sure.
That's a soft yeet from Randy.
It's not that soft. I just want to direct it to the right people. Thank you for solidifying my yeet.
All right. Juice, what about you?
I'm going to give this one a hell yeet. I had never heard of this movie before. And I'd never seen it before. And it is time travel, and I actually like those. I had this crazy flashback. It's been a long time now. We watched that. Is it Triangle or whatever?
Yeah,
it was Randy's pick.
Yeah,
and I remember loving the shit out of it.
Hold on. It's important not to do spoilers.
Well, no, I won't. It's just I like movies that talk about time. We don't get a whole lot of them, but I like them when they're done well because they always melt my brain. I love to think about them. I really do. And when they're done well, it's this one, I like some of the themes it plays with in the horror realm as well, outside the sci-fi time aspect. And we'll talk about that more soon, but I would recommend. So I don't even think it's exclusive. I say that because I don't think it's exclusive just to people who like time travel. It is a solid time travel, but it has some really cool things. I think it plays with tropes or ideas just from the horror realm as well, separate from that. So yeah, hell yeet from Shaboy. Robert,
yo,
you gonna give this one a yeet or what?
Yeah, I'd give it a medium yeet. Yeah, it's not super hot yeet, but medium yeet. Okay. Never seen this one before. First time. Very food oriented.
Coming out with some lukewarm yeets around here.
I had heard of this before, primarily because our resident serial killer Drew, who was on the podcast a while ago, I remember him talking about this and how much he really enjoyed it. So I was somewhat aware of it. First time I actually saw it though, and yeah, I would recommend it. If you're a horror head, it's definitely got some horror elements, and it's the plot and the shit that goes down is definitely gonna be intricate and mind bending enough to really pull you into it. Worth checking out. Solid pick. Yeah, sounds like a decent recommend from the Straight Chilling crew. Before I get into it, this is one you definitely don't want spoiled, so if you haven't seen it, I would recommend pausing the cast, checking out the movie, and coming back. But here is the spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah.
All right, I specifically know that Bob has a plot synopsis for us, and this one is intricate. This one is tricky. So I think Bob did a pretty good job with this plot synopsis. Bob, you ready to tell us what's going on here? Try to break it down.
Yeah. So this is your last warning. Like, we're going to talk about this whole movie. We're blowing it wide open, so spoilers are flying from right here, right now. So the way this movie is set up is there are multiple of the same person, and they're sort of doing different things at the same time. And the way the movie unfolds is like you only see the perspective of one of these people at a certain time. So the way I wrote the synopsis out is chronologically. So this is not exactly how the movie is presented to us. I sort of take the three versions of the one person that we see in this movie and talk about all three of them doing their things at the same time. So that
Totally restructuring it.
kind of, yeah. A lot of it happens as the movie does, or at least the first half does anyway. It kind of starts to unravel towards the end. But so yeah, that's how this is going to come across. Hopefully it's easy to follow. Oh, here we go. Okay. Hector and his wife move into a new house in the woods. One day, Hector's casually looking into the woods with his binoculars, and he sees a man with a bandaged head and a naked woman. He goes to investigate the woman, and he gets stabbed in the shoulder with some scissors by the bandaged man. As Hector is running for his life, he comes across a futuristic-looking building. He finds a walkie-talkie and communicates with a man in a nearby building who tells him to follow the lighted trail to find him. Hector follows directions, and he is tricked into getting into a time machine, causing him to travel back in time an hour or however long it is. When Hector exits the time machine, the man he met on the radio, whose name is Elhoven, acts surprised and asks him who he is. Unbeknownst to Hector 2, so now the guy that has just traveled back in time I'm going to refer to as Hector 2. Hector 2, Elhoven is acting under the instruction of Hector 3, who has crawled out of the time machine a few minutes before Hector 2, and tells Elhoven that Hector 2 will explain everything as he arrives in just a couple minutes, and that he has to act surprised to see him, even though we know he's coming now. Elhoven instructs Hector 2 to do nothing once he arrives, and not to interfere with Hector 1. Elhoven also says that Hector 1 must get into the machine at the end of the night for everything to be sort of reset and go back to normal. Hector 2 does not listen to Elhoven and pretty much immediately steals a car. He drives past the girl that he saw that day previously, and he stops. He is then sideswiped by another vehicle being driven at this point by Hector 3, unbeknownst to Hector 2. Hector 3 is trying to stop him from interfering with time and shit. Hector 2 he crashes off the road into a tree. The woman on the bike tries to help him by calling an ambulance. Hector 3 also crashes into a tree, and he passes out. Hector 2 bandages up his head and realizes he is the bandaged man from earlier before. And realizes that he basically stabbed himself at this point. Hector 2 then makes the girl take off her shirt in order to intrigue Hector 1. It works, and Hector 2 stabs Hector 1 just like we saw previously. The girl ends up escaping and runs into Hector 3, whose face is not bandaged up, and she doesn't realize they're the same person at this point. The girl says she saw a house nearby and takes Hector 3 to it. It is indeed Hector's own house. They go inside the house. Hector 3 tells her that Hector 2 saw her and went crazy, so she has to wear a disguise. He cuts her hair short to look like his wife Clara's and makes her wear one of Clara's jackets. Hector 2 then enters the house looking for his wife. Hector 3 bashes Hector 2 in the face with a coffee table Clara constructed earlier. Hector 3 then tells the girl to run and hide in the attic. Hector 3 collects Clara from her hiding spot, and then they sit on their lawn chairs and look into the forest. Hector 2 chases the woman out of the window onto the roof, accidentally pulls her off, and she falls to her death. Hector 2 thinks the woman is Clara, his wife. Hector 2 then tells Elhoven he has to go back in time again because something has gone wrong. Elhoven takes a battery out of the machine and throws it into the yard before Hector 2 tells him he needs to go back in time again. Hector 2 realizes that he does this and that he must have already gone back in time, because how else would Elhoven know that he's about to say that? Elhoven tells him that Hector 3 called him earlier and explained everything that was about to happen. That's how he knew. And then says... He then says...
Sorry, I just had a baby in the time you started.
Oh, God, I'm almost done. He then says if Hector 2 should take another trip back in time. He will then become Hector 3. Hector 2 goes back in time, becomes Hector 3 anyway. So that's pretty much the story chronologically. That is a lot to digest, I realize.
It's intense.
Yeah, it's much easier to envision the events as depicted, which is basically you're following Hector as he jumps from time to time.
Yeah.
Linearly for him as he experiences
Hector 2,
it.
and then Hector 3. Yeah.
Right, yeah, he progresses into Hector 2 and then Hector 3 as opposed to being like a guy that's jumping around linear time.
Yeah. You only follow you really only follow the one guy as he progresses through going back in time twice.
It will be so much more challenging to depict it, as Rob just said. So yeah, it's a tough challenge to even do that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, not to your credit, it's a tough undertaking.
Well,
but,
and the thing I like about this time movie is because you follow that singular Hector as he progresses through time, the mind melt about this all is that if you think about how that day progressed, the very first thing that happened in this whole chain of events is that guy what's his name, Bob? Elhoven meets Hector 3. That's the first thing that happens in this day.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I mean, I think that maybe he saw the lady in the woods first. Hector 1 did. Because Hector 3 shows up seconds before Hector 1 appears at
No.
the
Hector
silo.
3 appears minutes before Hector 2. And Hector 2 is the one who makes the girl take her shirt off.
And at that point, okay, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, so the first thing that happens in this day is Elhoven meets Hector 3. So it really fucks with your idea of time and how Hector 1, the original Hector, really had like no choice, or not no choice. That's not correct.
It was predestined. This movie seems to be operating on the idea. There's time travel is handled differently all throughout fiction, obviously. I mean, but this is not your Doc Brown time travel where you go back in time, and then you step on, you run into your mom and you might undo your existence.
Yeah.
This is a situation where him going back in time is actually integral to him getting back in time in the first place.
Yeah,
so
getting back to
he couldn't
normal.
alter it if he tried to. He tried to, like by tossing away a walkie-talkie, he tries to undo what is predestined, but he can't do that because it would create a paradox. So the universe like makes that happen. It's like every decision you're making, you have already made, basically.
I feel like the way Elhoven sort of explains how to make things right is like that Hector 1 has to get back into the time machine at the end of the night. Like that's what has to happen to make things correct. But then that's just going to, the whole situation is going to repeat at that point. It's just going to keep happening perpetually. So that's not really going to fix the problem. I feel like if he had just, like if Hector 2, like Hector goes back in time and Elhoven's like, hey, don't fuck with Hector 1, just sit here and don't do anything. If he hadn't done anything at all and Hector 1 never got into the time machine and went back in time, then at a certain point, like when Hector 1 was supposed to get in the time machine and go back in time, but time has progressed past that, then Hector 2 would just cease to exist and there would just be the one Hector, right? There would be one person.
I don't think that's possible in this world, because what's happened is like if Hector 3 shows up, let's just say, Elhoven's sitting there, he's just at work or whatever, and he hears fucking this dude on the radio, and then a guy comes and all this shit. Like all that happening is integral to getting him into the pod the first time.
Yeah.
So for him to then go back in time, Hector goes back in time, but every move that he makes contributes to him getting into that pod in that first case. So like these are the same people theoretically going through that same moment in time, so they're making the same decisions, which means Elhoven's not going to club him on the back of the head and chain him to a pipe to keep him from doing stuff, or just throw him right back into the oven. And Hector's not going to sit still like he's told. He's going to go out and try and talk to his wife or whatever and try and reclaim his spot, because he just sees it as an intruder, which is himself. And by doing that, he gets into an accident, he wraps up his head, and he becomes the guy that was chasing him earlier, or that stabbed him earlier. So like, I don't think that they can actually alter the timeline in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And
I think Elhoven
that's-
is afraid that he can because there's no way of knowing for him. He's experiencing this for the first time too, so I don't think he can.
I don't think so.
I don't think
either.
Elhoven is aware of I don't think Elhoven is knows enough to know that's not a danger that could happen.
I think the idea, it's very interesting to me because of the way this thing looks at time and specifically time travel. As like we see time moving forward constantly, and even Bob's saying like this is a constant loop, but it's not a constant loop because we see at the end of the movie, Hector 3 is done. He realizes what has to come, and because he realizes, and I think what the movie is presenting is that time travel, we see it like constantly moving forward, but really this whole thing that we see is just 1 hour. Like it is just one, and it has like, even when we follow Hector 1's journey, like that's just the hour. And then you're right, he can't change it. There's nothing. It's like if you tip over a glass, it's like I can't ever undo that before. It's like the same concept. It's like time in this 1 hour, this is how it exists, and that's just how it's going to exist.
And that's one thing I agree. And I think that what's interesting about it as well is that one thing that I wish this movie had done more, one thing that qualm that I had with it was early Hector 1, when he first goes back in time, he's dubious of the whole thing, which is somewhat understandable, but he's like not even really listening or paying attention. And I feel like if he knows all this is happening or whatever, he could just stop himself from being attacked. He could be like, okay, I'm going to take actions now. Instead of not doing anything, I'm going to go take actions not to prevent my wife from kissing a former me who I don't believe is me or whatever, but instead had taken the radio and thrown it out like he did later on. If he had done more of that and it just then went back to what it was original, and everything still resulted the same, then that sort of proves that it's not that the universe course corrects, it's that you're on a track and you're going to make the same decisions in that same moment every time you live it, or like, because you're experiencing it linearly, you're making decisions based on the experiences that you have. So it doesn't matter that you're back in time. You still have the experiences that you have, and you're making the same decision you would make regardless. So I just wish they would have pressed that a little bit and had him be like, what the fuck? Why can't I stop this from happening? He only does that a little bit. But later on, it's like his motivation becomes, well, okay, I'm when he's all bandaged up and he's chasing what he thinks is his wife up the stairs of his house, and then his wife, quote unquote, falls down and dies. That motivates him to go back in time again. And like you said, Hector 3 knows this at the end, and he's resigned to it, and he kills this girl basically in order to make sure that happens, because he knows it's going to happen regardless. So like, he was going to make that decision anyway. I don't know if there's a case where he could have made a different decision. Like this is all shit that like they cover in a few other things. Like Devs actually covers some of this stuff. That show Devs I mentioned on FX. It's interesting to think about. I don't think that there's a deviation path really, though.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think that's kind of I wish they would have pressed up against that a little harder so that was a little clearer. But I think that's kind of the case. I don't see a good case for anything being alterable.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way I was watching the movie, I kept seeing this guy like have realizations, like when he calls himself and like he listens to the voicemail that he leaves himself. Like, okay, so like you realize that you have been interacting with a version of yourself earlier this day. And like specifically, he has a massive realization as he's bandaging up his head and he looks in the mirror and he's like, oh fuck, I'm the guy with the pink bandage. So like you're about to stab yourself, maybe course correct, and just don't do anything. Go sit down somewhere and don't fucking do anything. But he doesn't do that. So it kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. Right. And it would have been, I think it probably would have made for a more interesting story for him to like try and stop himself and us realize like no matter what, you're going to stab yourself. Like
he trips over a rock. Then it almost becomes like a comedy. Like there is a comedy version of this where he trips over a rock and accidentally stabs himself in the arm or some shit.
He's all of a sudden Kevin McAllister doing Home Alone with Michael Jackson in the window and shit, trying to fool everybody to make sure that things go exactly to plan. He becomes a stage producer all of a sudden, Yeah. And I agree. Like if he had pressed up against that more, the thing is like, even if he like, that's not this character. This character is just in disbelief to begin with. He doesn't buy this bullshit. He just knows something weird's going on and there's another guy at my house, so he's going to go deal with it. But if he was like somebody more savvy and somebody like that's like, wait, well, I mean, let's say he's like an anarchic thinker who just doesn't want. So he's like, well, fuck, like the end of Cabin in the Woods, where they're like, well, fuck it, if this is, if I can alter this, then I'm going to alter it. And so instead of going to stab himself, he decides not to resolutely. Somehow or another, circumstances would happen to make him stab himself because it's happened. He doesn't go back in time unless that moment happens. So the world isn't going to allow a paradox to happen. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. And I like the illustration they had that the guy made to describe this, because it's just like loose enough to be like inscrutable on its own. But it does make sense in terms of his journey as Hector, that it's like a letter Z, you know what I mean, with an arrow. And then it shows him going backwards in time, but he's not going back to the same point in time. He's going back non-linearly for himself. He's experiencing his life still on the same track, one line.
Yeah.
It's just that he's experienced one of those hours of his life twice and then 3 times. So I think that's a really interesting way of illustrating it. And I thought, I don't know, this movie is it's a little bit mind-bendy, and I'm glad that they pushed it to the Hector 3 moment, because up until that point, I was like, man, this is like a little rote, a little bit basic seeming. You know what I mean? So they needed that extra level of the Inception machine to make it, make it like more like a ballet of moments that have to happen in order for like our guy to get to the end of the road.
So do you guys think the only way for Hector to correct his existence is to just kill the other Hectors?
No,
I don't think there is like
he is that he can't.
Yeah, that's that. I guess that's the thing, is like this is what has happened from this movie's perspective. This is what has happened from the very beginning. Like we can only see time one way, but if you are able to like zoom out, you would see all 3 of these Hectors, no matter like you would just see it's just 1 hour. And in 1 hour, there has never been a time where there were not 3 Hectors. It's just 3 Hectors because of the way the time loop works. So it's not like 3 separate hours. This is 1 hour, and there have always been 3 Hectors because of how this works, the way the movie presents it. So I don't think there's no correction. It's just what happens.
Now, it's possible, and this is getting into like crazy levels of shit, but now if you wanted to go even deeper with it, you could say theoretically that there is a quote unquote altered universe where he can make different decisions or whatever, but that is an alternate universe from what we're experiencing here. That's like you're going into the 5th dimension at that point, or whatever dimension it is, that where it's parallel timelines, and the timelines split and branch off or whatever like that. But that's not how we experience time. That's not how he experiences this whole day. And once you've got the track has already been set and the things have already happened, you can't undo it. Like you can't then go back and undo what you have done in the past, or what you have done in your past, but in your timeline's future.
Yeah.
Because if you did, that would be a paradox. And I guess the universe, that particular parallel universe, would cease to be. So there would be, I don't know, that's maybe a different movie would cover that a little bit more. But like this movie is strictly dealing with this one timeline, and within this one timeline, it can't be altered because it's his timeline, basically. I don't know if that makes sense. Describing this is harder than actually understanding it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's not that complex, like experiencing it.
I get hung up on the little diagram the guy draws, because like it does branch off. Like Hector 1, he does branch off and go back and then sort of start a new path for Hector 2 at that point. But they're both traveling forward, and it seems like at a certain point in the day, if Hector 2 does not go back in time again, then that's going to like erase Hector 2, and there's just going to be Hector 1, because he never went back in time. Like,
well, see, that's the way we think, and that's how he thinks about it. That's how that's the way the guy kind of explains it.
Right.
But that's the realization that Hector has is that that's not true.
That
and
that's, happen. Yeah.
And that's even the idea that I like. Like this guy, he's the guy who turns on the machine accident, which he actually technically, I guess he does turn it on, but just being there, he's like not supposed to. He's trying to get experience that he would not get at a regular work day. Like, he is not top dog at this time machine plant.
The time machine factory.
He's trying to get, and some of the trivia is actually, I read it beforehand, it's going to be fun about this.
Cool.
I think they did some cool little details about this, but this, in the movie, the main plot, like, this guy is trying to get some extra time with the machine, and that is what causes this whole event, and that's why it's interesting that, like, he thinks he knows and he doesn't know, and that's the realization that Hector has. It's like, no, this has just always been like, this is just how time is. It's not like how we perceive it, where like Doc Brown, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna change it. There's no change,
right? Because every
specified
step is
thing
required for you to get
happened.
to the step B. And in order for all of this to happen, there has to be a Hector that forces that woman into the woods and to strip. In order for all of this to happen. In order for all this to happen, every that's why it seems to us like a pirouette of him, like, setting up these scenes for his former self to see, and then instigating the next step or whatever. Like, all that stuff is not, it's just not alterable, is kind of the conclusion this movie seems to come to. Now, what's interesting about that is that it's predestined, but, like, it's interesting. It's just crazy to see it all play out, because I keep thinking about the woman that helped, the woman that gets killed basically in place of his wife, the woman who we see strip and all that shit. Like, this poor woman has no choice in fucking anything, and she is way too compliant, in my opinion. But, like, and to some extent she has to be, because she's intimidated, and that's understandable. But, like,
she does work Hector up a little bit. She kicks him, like,
she
in
runs
the
off.
head, and they get a bit of a tussle, but
Yeah, but eventually, like, he like puts a coat on her and cuts her hair, and she does not ask a question. Like, why are you cutting my hair
shit at this point? To be fair,
I mean, that's a nitpick. That's a nitpick. But
also, I think this movie, so, like, the time aspect is obviously the main focus of this, and it's really intriguing, and I think is pulled off pretty well. And it is easier to understand as you experience it, and that's something I appreciate. Talking about it's difficult, but actually, when you experience this movie, like, I wasn't confused. I wasn't confused about what was happening. But I think this movie does two other things really well, or is kind of like talking about two other things outside of the time thing that I would like to talk about. And one of them is, like, the woman aspect. But another one, so I want to get back to that. Remind me if I could forget. But another one that I really like about this, I thought was really fucking cool, is they create this, like, slasher almost, this guy with a bandaged head, and it actually looks really cool. Like, that moment when we're following Hector 1 and he turns around and he's doing, like, the binocular things, and he's, like, kind of hunting him in the woods, and then later when he's, like, hunting them in the house, I loved that it was, like, from the perspective of a slasher, like, the almost comedy level, like, this misunderstanding. Like, no, I'm not a bad guy. Like, no, I'm, like, not trying to kill you. Like, if you don't run from me, you'll actually, like, survive or whatever. I don't know. I like that aspect of following this slasher character around. Because I was like, if you flipped it, because we were for a second, and that's what I liked. For a moment of this film, that was the slasher. That was the bad guy. We were with Hector 1, and he was being chased by a slasher. And then we get to spend time with the slasher character. Like, we walk in his shoes. Like, what's this guy really doing in his day-to-day? And it's like, oh, it's this huge misunderstanding. I thought that was cool. I liked it. I don't know what y'all think.
To me, like, it was fine. I saw it coming. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
I saw it coming.
From the jump. I was like, well, that's him. I don't know. Like, I didn't know this. I wasn't even sure this movie had time travel in it until, like, but I was like, this seems like this guy's identity. This guy's attacking them suddenly out of nowhere. You barely see him. Like, this is not even like a Jason level. Like, he doesn't even get a badass intro moment, which you would see in an actual slasher. He's just like, things are happening and they don't make sense. And then all of a sudden this guy's here killing people. I'm like, okay, well, obviously this is going to be somebody we've met in this movie. The only person that makes sense is this guy. Like, that's just the way my brain was working with it. So I wasn't really
mask.
like blown away by that. I thought the mask was fine.
Yeah, it's cool.
I don't know. I feel like that with the slasher aspect of it could have baked that a little more. I think they could have like what you're describing, Justin, sounds interesting, but what I saw was, like, flashes of that, but not enough to really make a meal of it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I just
So
like
I
when
kind of underwhelmed with that.
like I saw it coming too, especially when he's going back in time. I was like, yeah, that's the guy. But what I liked was experiencing it, I guess. Like where he's wandering through the woods and where he's like, shit, I fucked my like ankle. I don't know. It was like I said, it was almost like comedy level. Like here's this dude bumbling around where in the first 30 minutes we thought he was like intimidating and hunting us and like going to kill us, and now he's just like bumbling around, like trying to like get through his house and shit. I thought that was funny. But the other aspect that I thought this thing was really touching on was like the point of the woman, and it was like this. Oh, I'm gonna sound like Bob over here. Good Lord,
Wow.
I just realized. This is not a Bing type of situation, but I really think this idea of like this oppressive man who is spying on this woman in the woods. She's naked, and he just happens to saunter over there after he sends his wife like to the store.
He's a peeping Tom.
Yeah, well, not only just peeping Tom, but this dude gets
start.
away. Like his idea of saving himself, like whether he has the realization at Hector 2 or Hector 3 or whatever, but it's ultimately he at first thinks he's saving himself because the guy tells him, whatever. What's it? Tell me again, Bob.
Elhoven
tells him like, no, you'll disappear or you'll cease to exist, whatever. So he's like willing to torture and sacrifice this woman to save himself. And not only is he like, and maybe he doesn't know at first like he's gonna kill her, but he's willing to like sexually assault her, like willing to just like do terrible things to her to save himself. And it still follows the idea of his initial like peeping Tomery, like, oh, like you're doing something in the woods, like I'm gonna enjoy it for myself, or like I'm gonna know get something for me. And I think that carries out to the film where he ultimately kills the woman. So it seems like she's this like secondary character, but I think there's a very essential message that they're trying to drive home, but it gets amongst the time and stuff, it gets kind of lost. But yeah,
see, I agree with you on that wholeheartedly, because this is one thing, and it's kind of dawning on me now as we've been talking about it. But like, what's interesting about this movie is we've been talking about how like, the future's already set, so you like this guy's going to make the same decisions regardless of whatever happens. But as set as this guy's time travel journey is going to be, and unmovable as it is, it's still based on his decisions at the end of the day.
And his character.
So destiny only factors in so far as what's going to happen is going to happen, but they're going to happen because of the person he is.
Exactly. What he's willing to do.
Right. So if he wasn't willing to spy on somebody, going skinny dipping in the woods or whatever, then maybe none of this happens. But he is that guy. And so all these other things happen as a result of that. It all cascades from one decision after another that he's making that he can't not make because of the person he is. And so he is destined to do them in some ways, but it's still a result of him and his personality and his decision making. I think that is an interesting point of view on the movie.
Yeah. His character is immediately called into question when he's like browsing through the woods and he sees a dude in a mask, which is sort of concerning, right? Like, he's in the woods behind your house. There's a guy in a mask. You might, red flag, right? But then he sees this chick with her top off and he's like, I guess I'll let it ride. And then he just like waits for his wife to leave. And then he's like, I'm going to go check out that naked woman.
Yeah.
Like there's a dude in a mask too. Like he just doesn't care about it. Questionable character.
He does, like, he's more, you're right, he's not concerned because he would have said something to his wife.
Yeah, like, hang on,
exactly.
we should probably call the police.
Yeah, like,
don't
I'm
leave.
concerned. But he didn't because he's more interested in the naked woman. He wants her to leave so he can check it out. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to get there and this chick's going to be like, oh, you happen to be here. Let's bang it out. Like, what are you doing up there?
Wow.
Yes. I don't know, man. I think that's true, and that actually like resolves one of the things I was going to bring up, which was a problem for me with this movie, which is like similar to what Rob said about the Lodge. Rob's been complaining about the Lodge. Is I don't understand why these characters are doing the things that they do. I feel that way about Hector pretty much this whole movie up until Hector 3 rolls in. So the thing about it is like Hector. All the things we just said, making bad decisions, or at least some immoral decisions that lead him down this path. I would argue. And then on top of that, though, like he's also like he's scheming on his own behalf later on by dressing this girl up, and like he's willing to do all of these things. And I was like, but at the same time, he's not willing to say like, honey, don't run. It's me, Hector. Like when he's coming into the house, it's me.
Yeah.
I got hurt. I need help. Like
Sure.
instead,
yeah.
he's not able to do like the most basic things to make his journey easier. Like the guy begs him to stay put, or he could end the universe or whatever. And of course he doesn't, because he's fucking an asshole. Like that's kind of the conclusion I'm coming to. So if that's a key to aspect to him, like this whole journey is sort of like about his bad decisions, I would say, and that makes that justifiable to me.
When it's also like a good kind of like metaphor for just that type of personality. If you just think about from the beginning what we see from this guy, like, okay, he's going to check out this woman, peeping Tom, he's letting his wife leave before he does it. So if you think about this movie and the idea of like an adulterer or like making decisions like that, like I'm going to use somebody else to benefit myself, their body or whatever. But yeah, you're right. Essentially, if you think about it in this kind of like metaphorical way, he is just covering up his mistakes with escalation, because it's not affecting him, it's affecting somebody else. And he's such a piece of shit that he's ultimately willing to kill somebody as long as he doesn't have to tell his wife or like whatever. Like,
yeah, as long as he gets back to his life.
Fucked up. Yeah, he's just only thinking about like, I gotta fix it for myself.
It's Walter
I gotta
White,
fix it for myself. Yeah, and he's willing to take the young, and it just so happens to be a young, beautiful, like attractive woman who's like seemingly like innocent. Like, I think it's a good metaphor for, maybe adultery. It could be other things, but I think that's intentional. It's just like the escalation of how you're willing to sacrifice somebody else to just cover up your own mistakes, to save yourself, to save your own marriage or whatever it is. Like that was pretty powerful to me, like in the movie.
I think that's true. And like, I wish though that, I mean, like I said, this is coming out to me more. This is making more sense to me in that way. Now that we're talking about it within the text of the film, I feel like it's a little oblique. Like the way this movie ends, I understand now, like thinking about it in that way, I can understand why they would end on a shot of Hector and his wife basically keeping his wife from looking at the dead body and the horrible thing that's happening behind her that has to happen in order for him to survive, or in order for this timeline to stay and all this shit. Like it just has to happen, period. But he's holding her captive in that and making her look forward. And like in a metaphorical sense, I can understand that being like, okay, like Walter White, like this, like you were saying, it's an escalating cascade of bad decisions based on the situation he's in each moment. Like, and it's justifiable in a sense in each moment, but mostly they're bad decisions that he shouldn't be making. They're immoral decisions. They're stupid decisions. They're whatever bad decision making skills you want to apply to it. That's what's going on. And it's leading him down this path to where like he has no choice but to, in his mind, but to like go forward with this and then just keep marching forward in time. And that's, like you said, like I if they had punched that punch bag a little bit harder right at the end, I feel like I would have gotten that. It would have clicked for me, and it would have made my experience watching it the first time a little bit stronger. So like, I was like, I don't know. To me, at the end of this movie, I was like, I guess that was kind of a fun, kind of an interesting journey, but I'm not sure what this movie is getting at. I think that's as good of a central thesis as any, but because of the way the film is done, I'm not sure how much of that is us applying that to a film versus a film presenting that to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did you guys have subtitles on this when you were watching it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had dubs.
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
that sucks.
They were not real great either.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I had subs.
Okay, yeah. Some of that may have been different than what I was hearing, but
subs v dubs.
hard to know for certain.
Ooh.
I picked this up on DVD, and that's just how it is. So I don't know.
Oh, those DVDs, they'll let you
Fucking
down, huh,
DVDs.
Bob?
They
That's
will
where
let
physical media will get you. I watched it for free 50.
At least you get a 4:3 aspect ratio or some shit, though, right? Am I right?
16:9, dog.
Whoa.
Oh shit! Wow,
All right.
big leagues now.
Heard that.
Oh, no, this
So yeah, you
Oh.
brought up Triangle Juice, and I was going to bring that up as well. And before we start talking about this, I want to preface this by saying, if you haven't seen Triangle, this would be a good time for you to jump ahead as well, because in order to discuss the correlation between these two movies, I have to sort of break some of the facade of that.
and watch Triangle. It's dope. That's
Triangle,
a hell
and then
yeet
like
recommend.
there's a few movies that are like this, and I gotta say their titles because I wanted to bring them all up. Triangle, Coherence, The Endless. Those three movies in
yeah, The
particular came
Endless.
to mind when
Yeah.
watching
The
this movie
Endless. Ugh.
because they're like horror centric with a little time travel going on. So if you are interested in watching any of those movies, please skip ahead. I'm sorry for whatever damage is already done, but we have to talk about it. So when I was watching this the first time, I was like, okay, so that's going to be Pink Face is going to be Hector, just from the like Return to the Past, worse for the wear, somehow winds up in this position. Got it. And I knew that all the way up to Hector 3, I was pretty much ahead of the game, and then it like managed to keep me guessing, which I was appreciative of. But that the whole time that I was kind of like ahead of the curve, I kept thinking to myself, like, man, like this feels like it's cribbing off of Triangle a lot. And I looked it up. Triangle came out 2 years after this film.
Oh.
So I don't maybe so if anything it was the other way around, right? But I would argue that I think that movie does this a little bit better. Like that's again this exact same situation basically, right? You've got these people show up and they're in a weird situation. A slasher starts killing them, and then one way or another, our lead character winds up going back in time in this case because of the Bermuda Triangle or whatever, and becomes the slasher because she has to, because it's ordained in order for her to get to the next rung to get what she needs to make sure that, you know, like whatever's coming next comes next.
I just remember the final twist of that movie. That movie's so fucking cool.
It's a cool movie, and
Yeah.
I think that movie is a better version of this one because it also has like it makes no bones about whether or not the lead character is a piece of shit. By the end of the movie, you know that character is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It feels tighter. The story overall feels better written.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was tough for me to kind of separate that. I did appreciate that there was an extra layer of time travel in this to sort of differentiate it. And the stylistically, like visually, I would say that this movie was a little bit more my style. Like if I'm going to go serious on this sort of thing, I appreciate that they like take sort of naturalistic photography and shit like that, as opposed to Triangle, which is very much more of like a slasher, like a standard slasher that suddenly kind of blows itself up a little bit, but is still presented with the lens and the craft of a slasher movie of the time. So I just appreciate the aesthetics of this movie a little bit more. I think they both got their qualities, but I would argue again that like the aesthetics of a slasher movie, a standard slasher movie, did that movie a world of good because it pushed home the ideas that Justin was talking about, you know, getting in the head of a slasher. Why is the slasher doing it? Oh, let's take a walk in their shoes. And here we go. Like, if you're going to do exactly that, that's the environment you want to do it in, right? Like that really drives that point home. I don't know. I just think overall that these movies are so similar. It's so similar, in fact, that when I was done watching this movie, I was watching it on Canopy, which is sort of like affiliated with the public library system in some way or whatever. But I watched that on Canopy and it suggested me right after that. So there's a clear correlation in substance of these movies, and I think that one just does it significantly better. It's tough for me to give this movie the upper hand when that movie exists. Do you know what I mean? And I saw it first. Like if I'd seen this first, I feel like it would hold a higher esteem for me, just experientially. Again, time travel. If I could go back in time and watch this first, maybe it'd be different.
Whoa,
but I can't.
Randy.
I can't do it. I experienced it how I experienced it.
Back
so
in
in
time.
I don't know. And then Coherence, kind of a similar thing, but more parallel worlds sort of thing. The Endless is like compact parallel worlds. Like I don't know. Those two don't quite have the same correlation that her Triangle does, but I wanted to bring them up because I was just thinking about time travel in a horror setting. Can you guys think of other examples of that? I want to see how it compares in other
I had forgotten about the Endless. Like when I was watching this movie, and it's been several years now, but I mean, Triangle was like the first thing that popped into my head. I was like, oh, this is like Triangle.
I can't really think of any other time travel movies. That
not off the
kind of
top
covers
of my head,
it.
yeah.
You were talking about like getting in the head of the slasher and like seeing sort of behind the scenes, spending time with them. Have you ever seen Behind the Mask?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
the Leslie Vernon story.
Yeah, the rise of Leslie Vernon Behind the Mask. That's what that movie is about entirely.
Huh.
And it's done in a very comedic way, but with a lot of like reverence for
it's
slasher.
not time travel. It's slasher.
Tropes. Yeah, it's not.
It's a
time
slasher
travel.
mockumentary, if that puts it in perspective.
No, I don't think I've seen that.
It's pretty solid. I think you'd like it.
Cool.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, especially if you were into that particular thing. Like, yeah, it adds a lot, I would say, to that conversation of walking around in the shoes of a slasher. You could also say that Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer has a little bit of flashes of that, but that was before actual slashers were the monolith that they are to draw from. That was really just more kind of like a parallel thinking thing, I think.
And that's treated a little more seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
God.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But yeah, those always kind of occupy the same space in my mind, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. There's not, the thing is, like, we can talk about the time travel and we can talk about the high ideals that we kind of like touched on, but I don't know what else we can really talk about with this movie. Like, craft. Yeah. Like, there's not much more to discuss, is there?
Yeah, there's not a lot of actors. It was like, I think I want to give a little more credit though, because I felt a similar way, and even Bob was texting me. He was like, "Hey, you want to watch Timecrimes?" I was like, "I've watched most of it. I got like 15 minutes to go." He's like, "Is it good?" I was like, I really need to wrap it up to see. And it really was, the 15 minutes was kind of like Hector 3's thing, because it felt kind of plain in that second half. Now, I was intrigued in the first, like the first third where it's Hector 1. I was intrigued by what was going on because we didn't know it was time travel yet or whatever. And then by like a quarter of Hector 2's journey, I was like, okay, they need to do something else. But I want to give a little more credit to making this so cohesive, because never did I feel confused. And that can be tricky when you're dealing with time travel stuff. So I think
definitely
where we feel like it's a little plain or it's a little basic, that could have been a choice to be like, we got to keep this streamlined so people don't lose us, or maybe, I don't know. I just want to give it credit for that, because I never felt confused.
I don't think that it was basic in the sense that it's like, oh, this is dumb or silly. I just felt like it was a little predictable to start with. And probably in large part because I've seen Triangle, but even setting that aside, it was a little bit more predictable. Once it started like keeping me guessing, then I was just more engaged. I think it's just really more of an experiential qualm than a filmmaking qualm. Because I think you're right. Like we talked about earlier, the way Rob described the series of events chronologically, if they had tried to do that, it would have been a nightmare for us to understand. And they would have had to put in a lot more legwork to make it easy to digest so that we can understand the drama that's playing out in front of us. But by having it, tethered to Hector as he goes forward, backwards, and forwards, like all this shit, like that makes it easier to understand, like, oh, okay, so that's why that happened earlier. And that's like, oh, and he caused this himself when he went back in time, this thing that happened, like it just, I don't know. It makes it easier to, it's like watching a magic act and then watching the same act while they're describing to you how they did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is cool. They made a whole fucking series of that in the 90s. So like, I don't know. I think that it was a smart filmmaking decision. My bigger problems are really kind of with whether or not they drove the points that we discussed home enough for it to really resonate, like without having to sit and have a whole dissection. We have to do a post-mortem to get there, which is sometimes the case, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. But I think that's if there's a weakness, it's that. You know what I mean?
Why don't we go ahead and rate this thing, since we're kind of circling the drain?
I guess
here.
we're kind of there.
I think we kind of touched on everything we want to. So out of 5, Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Timecrimes?
All right, I like this movie. I was entertained by it, and while it did have a little lull in the middle, Ultimately, I was satisfied with how it ended, and I actually did, as it was happening, like as he was cutting her hair and I realized that he was sacrificing that girl for himself, I did have the realization. I didn't have to like sit on it a whole lot of being like, he has just used this girl completely, as he gets to sit with his wife at the end. Like, he has just used her completely for his own gain or to cover up his own disgusting mistakes. So that did have a bit of more impact for me. So I was into that, like, from the very beginning. I liked the time travel. It just melts my mind. I like thinking about it. It's cool, and they did a good job. I don't know. It was clean. It's like, it's solid and a little more than solid. I liked it, and I would watch it again, and I would recommend it to almost anybody. Like, but it's not going to escalate itself. I do think Triangle's better and done well, but I don't know. I like this movie, and I am going to give it a 3.5, and I am not giving half star for Yabos because that was against her will. So that's not how we roll here at Straight Chilling. Man's got a code.
I appreciate.
I feel like
half
that
of
code
your
has been ignored a few times.
Yeah.
I feel like that amendment to the code is relatively recent, because there's been movies in the.
No, man.
I don't know. I can't point to an example, but I mean, I don't know.
Don't besmirch my code, Randy.
Besmirch
Well,
me.
if you keep to it going forward, then good on you. But next time, fucking, somebody's trying to do something horrible to a woman, but with Jason standing behind them, I hope that the presence of silly ass Jason isn't going to cloud your judgment on that.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right, Bob.
Yeah.
We'll make Randy go last. Bob, out of 5, what are you giving Timecrimes? Not a great title. Let's go ahead and say
yes.
that.
Oh, I wanted to say that too.
It's not
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
The time's fine, but the crimes, I mean,
I'm a big fan of
that
Time.
makes it sound like a heist
and
action
Crimes.
movie.
Yeah, it really does.
Timecrimes, solid movie. I guess the one complaint that I have about it that we didn't touch on a whole lot is like the sort of the inner logic of the movie, I guess, as it's presented to us via Elhoven, because he's sort of the guy that's going to info dump on us here. He's supposed to be the one that understands the time machine, like how time travel works. So he explains sort of the inner workings of the movie to us. Unfortunately, Elhoven doesn't fucking know what he's talking about. He's like the janitor or something who's trying to, get some time in with the machine or some shit like that.
Is that true? Do we know what his role is?
No,
there?
we don't.
I just assumed that
I
they
was just
didn't know
throwing that
because
out there.
they'd never sent a person back in time before.
Yeah, it seems like he's just working on the weekend because he wants to play around with some cool shit, is what I gather, anyways. But the way he sort of describes the situation isn't really what happens, I guess. Like I wish he was a little more knowledgeable, I guess. But the shit that goes down in the movie is definitely intriguing and mind-bending enough to keep you entertained throughout the entire movie. And I really like the mask, like the whole pink bandage. I thought that was a pretty cool look for a killer, whether it goes like full slasher or not. I think it's just kind of a neat look. Cool design anyways. Yeah, it's a decent thriller overall. I'm going to give it a 3. Kind of, it's above a 2.5 for sure. It's not quite down the middle. I'm going to give it a 3. Randy, how you feel out of 5?
So yeah, despite being maybe a little more critical than these guys, I think that this movie is good. I feel like seen done better, and that was clouding my enjoyment a little bit. And I agree with Justin that I came to the same conclusion Justin did. That was the Hector at the end of the movie, Hector 3, is clearly willing to do anything to save himself, essentially. In his mind, save himself and maybe the universe or whatever. I don't know if he still thinks that he can alter it or not, and he's just barely scraping it together. Like, maybe, but I don't think that that's to us. It's made pretty explicit that you can't alter it by trying to alter it. So but it's still his decision. I don't know. I just, the idea that all of this happened because of his decision making could have been pressed just a little bit harder at the end. and I would have made that connection a little quicker. Well, I still thought he was a piece of shit, but I didn't think that it was the idea that, even with the predestination angle, that it's predestined that way because of who he is. I wish that we could have touched on that just a little bit harder, press that button just a little bit more. And the existence of other movies that I think do exactly that and a little bit better made it a little bit less enjoyable for me. Overall, like, the look of this movie is good. I had a hard time with Hector because he was a piece of shit, like we talked about. The decisions he made were shitty, and also because he was wildly incompetent and doing things that didn't make sense to me in the moment, like not saying, "Honey, it's me. I'm home and hurt. Please come help me," instead of trying to chase her up a fucking hallway with bandages on your face and a duster on. Like, I don't know, like. And as far as the serial killer aspect, I like it in theory, but again, it's been done a little bit better in the past, or not in the past, I guess, in my past. I've seen it done better in other places. So I don't know. As good as it is, I think that there's proof positive to me that there are other movies that exist that do it a little bit better, and that tampers my enjoyment a little bit. Let's see. And as far as the serial killer thing, one other thing, the mask itself, I thought it was kind of cool looking, but also I thought it looked way cooler in the poster, which is clearly designed to make it look like a slasher film instead of what we got.
Yeah.
And even the slasher moments in the film where you have a slasher chasing people down, you think those don't really play the way that a traditional slasher would in any way. And I guess that keeps it more cohesive with the rest of the movie, but I just wonder what the decision-making process is with that. That seems like a marketing decision to push that angle instead of an artistic decision. So that's just kind of how it strikes me. I don't know, man. And then the title is my other complaint, because again, that sounds like a fucking, just a low-budget 80s space action where people fall off rails a lot.
It really does.
Yeah, so all that said, I do like the cinematography. I thought the acting was pretty capable. For being in another language, a little difficult to tell, but from what I could tell, it was pretty capable. It was kind of heartbreaking for the one woman who dies, and it was interesting following a piece of shit as he spirals deeper and deeper down a chasm of bad decisions. That's always fun to watch. It's always fun to watch. Yeah, I like it. I'm going to give it a 3.5. And I checked after I decided that, and that is 0.5 lower than I gave Triangle, which I think is appropriate.
Whoa. All right. 3.5 from Randy. That's going to put our aggregate at a 3.3. Let's go ahead and jump over to our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Timecrimes.
Certified fresh to death.
Rotten Tomatoes segment of our podcast, in which I'm going to ask these two gentlemen to guess within the best of their ability what percentage of critics and users believe this movie to be a thumbs up versus a thumbs down. So let's start. We'll start with the critics, and we'll go to Soju. Now, there are 71 critic scores here.
71.
So not a ton, but not too little, I would say. Enough to, qualify for certified or not or whatever.
All right.
So, yeah.
I think being a foreign film is going to help this a scotch, but I still don't think it's going to be too high. I think Straight Chillin' Squad's going to be close on the mark on this one. So I'm going to give it... I think the Straight Chillin' Special is too high. So I'm going to give it a 60.
60. Okay. 60 dudes. Here we go. Bob, how about you? What do you feel about this movie? What do you think the critics are going to do?
I want to say it'll be a little bit higher than a 60, but not much higher.
Wow.
I'll take a 65, please.
65. You guys just don't want the comedy number.
No,
Yeah,
it feels too high.
It does feel too high, yeah.
Since when have we ever concerned about getting it right?
Gotta get it right. Gotta get it
I
right.
want that Hell You Eat Sweet.
Well, unfortunately, you're not going to get it.
Damn.
Bob's going to take the critic score. The actual critic score here is 89%. Certified fresh. So yeah, I mean, again, I think that's a result of this. At least for me, I always think about this as like, oh, what percentage is this movie good? Instead of what percentage
Yeah,
of critics thought
I
this movie was
know.
good versus
Mhm.
bad. I always
I
run
can
into
see
that
where
trap for
people would
myself.
have like problems with this, though.
Yeah, I mean, I did obviously. So
Yeah.
clearly, but yeah, I don't. I don't know. And for maybe at the time it was released, it was still a pretty novel idea. I
True,
would
true,
imagine.
yeah.
So maybe that had something to do with it. Here's what the critics had to say. Timecrimes is a low-budget thriller that's well-crafted and loaded with dark humor and bizarre twists. Now, that's the second time I've heard somebody say it's got a lot of dark humor. I didn't see a ton of dark humor. At least I didn't make a note of it in the progress of the movie.
Yeah, that was lost on me if it was supposed to be
Like,
in there.
I found
there were a
some
few moments that were like
moments.
chuckle-worthy, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, where he was like hitting the dude with a crowbar, and there were points where it seemed like they wanted it to be more light, like a dark,
Yeah.
like a black comedy, almost, or like when he was wandering around the woods. Like I saw the potential of the comedy in there, but yeah, they didn't play it up for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it was tonally disparate from what we got. Well, I think that we got something that was tonally sort of like so grounded and so like, shit, I got to do this. I got to do X. I got to do Y. Oh, like chicken with his head cut off situation, but not really hitting the comedic bone for me so much. So I don't know. It felt more like they were going for drama than comedy. Maybe that's just us. I don't know. All right, let's go over to the audience score. The users, of which there are 8,786 who chimed in on this movie. So almost 9,000, getting towards it. Let's start with Bob this time. What do you think the audience gave this thing?
Man, now I'm kind of thrown off. The critics were so high. I'm going to go, I guess, a little bit higher. Just give me the 69 dudes. Just give it to me.
69
Diddy proud.
dudes.
Thank you.
All right, Juice, what
All
are you going
right,
to put it at?
I'll go higher at 75.
75. All right. Well, here's that yeet you wanted, Soju. The actual score is 79, so you're damn close.
Woo! Can I get a hell yeet?
No.
All right,
That's
there we
fair.
go.
I didn't give you the hell skeet this time. I forgot. I apologize, Bob.
Thank you.
You should feel bad about it.
You should feel horrible.
Horrible.
All right,
Horrible.
let's take a look at some of these reviews. There aren't a lot of negatives. Literally, the only negative review on the front page says "quote not available." So, I guess I guess that's funny in its own right for some reason.
That's pretty rough, man.
We'll
It's a rough
just
review.
go with that. Quote not available. I guess that's a good point. All right, and that's Rotten Tomatoes.
Hilarious.
Sweet deal. Thank you, Randy. Juice, let's jump over into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right. Oh man. The shirt that the girl is wearing and when she's in the forest or whatever.
Mhm.
Depicts the old, how do you pronounce that dude? The cat, the paradox cat. What's it?
Schrodinger.
Yeah, that guy's cat.
Does it?
Yeah.
I thought it was. My mind instantly went to
Cheshire
this is
cat?
So idiot. So no, I didn't even notice they were cats. Honestly, I thought it was. I don't know. In my mind, it's replaced with the internet comment etiquette, gay frogs in a rainbow color fucking each other T-shirt design. That's so
What?
I don't know
idiosyncratic.
what you're talking
It's
about.
very
Me neither,
specific.
man.
That's so specific. Yeah, there's gonna be one guy that's listening to this and like, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. The shape of the logo on the gate remote control is also visible on the young woman's shirt in the negative space between the two cats. What?
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what's
It's a
up with
design decision, I guess.
that. Let's play a little game.
I'd like to play a game.
Apparently there was going to be an American remake of this film, which makes me curious about Triangle. It doesn't say when, but there was a pretty big name actor attached to play the main role in this. Who do you think in 2007 was attached to play the main role of the American remake in this film? Randy, I'll let you go first.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
As a hint. So, was this an actor that was very big then, or more? Were they bigger then or now, or are they about the same?
Probably about the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say about the same.
I'm gonna just shot in the dark here. Go with Johnny Depp.
Okay, Johnny Depp, Robert. Who do you think?
I'm gonna go with Vin Diesel.
You are both incorrect.
Damn it!
This
We didn't
is
get it out
boy Tom Cruise stains
Oh
was
my
attached.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Dodge that bullet. Yep.
I found this little piece of trivia kind of funny. I don't. Premiered at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas in September 2007.
Fantastic Fest is a big deal.
Is
Yeah.
it? Oh,
Yeah, it
okay.
is.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of
Not
funny.
the biggest deal, but it's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Okay. I'm unaware. And this one was cool. This is the last piece of trivia. At around the 16-minute mark, when Hector first goes into the house, not the house, the like office or whatever, he passes a computer screen. The top of the screen is labeled Time Machine Configuration Interface Beta. The bottom right displays the warning, caution, please pay for your software, implying that the time machine is running off an unlicensed beta of the software.
Wow.
That's pretty
You think-
funny. I wonder if
think
it was in
Holden's just a
Spanish
tinkerer?
and
He's just a
maybe that's
homebrew
why we
guy?
couldn't see it. That's pretty
so funny. So wait, so there's just like a company licensing out time travel technology? That seems like a dangerous proposition to me.
El Hoven torrented that shit. He's not paying for
Oh
it.
my God. That is so funny.
Yeah, that was around the time of BitTorrent.
It would be even funnier if that was the software they're referring to is whatever is displaying that for the movie. like it's PDF. It's like Adobe PDF. You need to purchase your Adobe, sir, of your Adobe Photoshop of this fucking screen that says Time Machine on it.
Oh, my lord.
Cool.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah,
Thank
that was
you.
it.
Thank you, Juice.
You're welcome.
Let's move things right along. We got to go hunting. We're talking Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Thank you, Cesar, for that. Juice, what's a Cooter?
Cooter is a A Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter has to hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter. The 5 points are manipulation, smug arrogance, sexual deviance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. There is a slim cast in this. So I think the first person we got to take to Cooter Court this week is our boy Hector.
Yep.
I don't know that there's another candidate.
There's not. There's only like 4 people in 4 people.
Yeah,
in
there's
this film. Yeah.
There's 4 people in this movie. Two
There
of
really
which,
are
or one
4.
of which is a non-character. That's his wife.
Yeah.
Who's just like a lady who likes to garden. That's all we know. And then there's the poor girl who ends
Yeah.
up dying for Hector's desire to look at titties.
The Hector triplets,
there's-
I would say.
Yeah.
All 3 of them.
Yeah, I don't separate
the
them as
same
separate
guy.
characters. Even them describing it that way, I thought was like, even in the movie, I was like, this is more confusing than just saying like you're going back in time, and when you do, you're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it was a little. They're not separate people. They're the same guy.
So Hector, let's see the easy one. Let's see, sexual deviance. Let's
Yeah.
just start with that one.
Check.
Peeping Tom.
Yeah, the whole
Check.
reason this gets kicked off is because he's spying on some Yabos in the forest.
And then forces the Yabos, come to find out.
Yeah, he's the one
Yeah.
who forces the Yabos. And then not only that, when he has a tussle with a girl and she falls down a hill and she knocks her head, he just strips her butt naked and leaves her hanging out in the woods.
Oh,
What's up with
he
that?
Had to. He had to.
Fuck, dude.
Well,
Dude, also, I thought she was dead at that point.
Me
Like, I was
too,
very-
yeah.
she seemed to be.
That was nice that she got to come back for a minute.
Well, I guess, yeah. All right. So, sexual deviance. Yeah, can we convict on that one?
Check. Manipulation, for
Manip.
sure.
He's manipulating time, man.
Yeah. And himself.
Yeah.
And the
yeah.
girl.
And the girl.
And his wife.
And to an extent, his wife.
yeah.
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 And Elhoven, because at the last contact he has with Elhoven is he calls him back and says what he was supposed to say, which is, "Oh, we're all going to be found out. We're fucked. Sorry about that," or whatever. And then as he walks away, he says something like at least now he'll get smacked around a little bit or something like that.
He's manipulating literally everyone in this film,
which is bullshit. That made me so mad. That he did that because it's like Elhoven has done nothing but react to you, just like everyone in this movie.
Yeah.
People have done nothing but react to you, the time traveler. Maybe you have some culpability here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and I would put that pebble into the smug arrogance category as well, because I think it's pretty fucking arrogant to do some shit like that. In fairness, though, he was probably pretty concussed at that time.
When he's like Hector, well, not Hector 1, I guess Hector 2, whatever. Yeah, he's got some smug arrogance where he's like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to go back. And like the dude who's supposed to be, well, to be fair, the dude who's supposed to be the specialist also is a dumbass. So it's like, why the fuck should we listen to him anyway? So, I mean, the guy tries to do what he can do to save his wife, but it's kind of like a moot point because he's such a piece of shit. So it's like, well,
all I know is that like the moment where he walks away after the guy explains to him that he is endangering the fabric of the universe or whatever is pretty goddamn arrogant. Because I don't know about you, but if I was running from a slasher in the woods, get into this giant tank filled with hot milk, and then came out in the daytime a second later, I would maybe listen to what the guy at the controls had to say about it.
The hot milk man, he knows what he's talking about.
Like, what happened to me? Why is it daytime? What the fuck?
Whoa. Hot milk man. All right.
Milk man. Yeah.
Hot milk.
So that's his attire. I would go ahead and say Mr. Pink Bandage with the old dirty duster, you know.
There was a weird moment talking about attire where he like takes the bandage off of his arm when he's about to wrap it on his head, and it's like dripping technically his blood, but it's also like the pink milk, but it's like it lingers and it's like it's all like fuzzy or like smoking or whatever, and it implies that there's something behind that, but they never explore.
I thought that too.
Yeah,
I thought there was going to be some
shot.
I don't know, like that those drops were going to like cause a black hole or some crazy shit.
Something
make the car go back in time.
I think it was just looking back, maybe it was just purely to show, it's the milk mixing with the blood that makes it pink. I'm guessing that's what it was. But in the moment, it seemed more significant than that.
Okay.
Blood
it
milk.
really did seem significant. Oh, well.
I think that's what
and
it was,
then overall patheticness, we're going to give it to...
I mean,
yeah,
being a peeping Tom in general is pretty pathetic by my logic, but...
Yeah, I was trying to think if there was any more. He does seem pathetic, doesn't he?
Yeah, he feels kind of helpless. Like he's doing anything he can to help himself, but he just cannot help himself. He can't do it.
Yeah, he has that moment where he's like trying to make sure that his former self saw him standing there and sees the naked woman, and then everything's happening. And like you were saying earlier, it's like this chicken with a head cut off moment that's a little pathetic in a, Walter White and Jesse Pinkman trying to carry a barrel with ski socks on their heads outside of a fucking facility for chemicals or whatever.
Yeah.
Like shit like that, where it should be funnier than it is, but to me it wasn't really striking as funny.
Sad, yeah.
It just really is kind of like, oh, this pathetic loser.
Yeah, when he's in the woods and he's trying to like do the binoculars thing and he keeps getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the thing is, it's totally understandable on some level, but it's also like, I don't know. We got enough to convict. I feel like throwing one more book at him isn't going to hurt anything.
I just didn't know if he was going to hit all 5. That's a rare.
I think he's
rare count.
Hard
put him at
like light
like
5.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Hard for like 25% of the last point. I would say is about fair.
Strong case. Let's book him, boys.
Yep, we booked him.
Book his ass.
Bam. You're fucked, Heather. Hector, you're fucked.
Heather.
Whatever your name is. I don't know.
Heather.
All right. It's time to let our hair down. We're talking about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, what you been watching?
Well, I've been extraordinarily busy, so there's been pretty limited amount of time unless I just wanted to unwind. in which case I was mostly watching a YouTuber, which I think I brought up last week, called Scott the Woz, which is all like Nintendo shit. He's just a very earnest nerd who's apparently everybody in the world knows about, who's on YouTube except for me. I just discovered him and I like his shit. So I've been watching a lot of that. I had Hot Fuzz running the other day while I was doing some work, and it's like that movie is like just like Shaun of the Dead is totally like a movie that has increasing returns with each watch. I never get less enthused for that movie. I always get more enthused when I watch that movie. So Hot Fuzz, always great. I finally picked up Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis, the book that she put out. She's another YouTuber, for those who don't know. I've brought her up for her channel before, and I think I might even brought up the book because I bought it a while back, but I started reading it finally, and it's like I've started reading it again, I guess. And it's fucking great. It's a total like sci-fi trip so far. I'm enjoying that. But probably the most interesting thing that I viewed this week was a movie called Fantastic Planet. Are you guys familiar with Fantastic Planet?
No.
It's a Criterion, and so I guess it's like just by the brand association, I assume it has some import with people. It's an animated French film that is very, very surrealistic and super fun to watch from an animation perspective. And it's basically the story of human beings on a planet where there are these giant blue humanoid aliens who treat them like dogs, like pet dogs and shit. And it's about them like, you know, being mistreated or whatever, and then organizing and then trying to get independence and shit. But they're like tiny and they're fighting these giant things, and they're in this world that has all these like Salvador Dali-esque like fucking fucked up creatures roaming around. It's all like the illustration. I don't know what it's done in exactly. I haven't looked it up, but it's like pastels or watercolor, or not watercolor. What pastels are color pencil, something like along those lines. That's very like gestural and gestural in terms of the quality of the marks, and then like, but really well done animation, almost to the point where I wonder if they rotoscoped a lot of it. Anyway, all that to say, it's fucking great animation. It's really trippy visuals, and the story was more than I thought it would be. I was expecting like a completely inscrutable mess, thinking like, well, this is going to be a weird one. I know it looks weird. It's got a reputation for being weird. I was thinking it was going to be like Katakuri level odd, but it was really more of a straightforward sci-fi tale than that. So it kind of strikes as like an animated version of something you'd read in like a pulp sci-fi magazine from the 50s or something. I recommend it. Check it out. That's it.
That's it? Wow, okay. Never heard of it, but that sounds pretty dope. Sounds like a hearty recommend.
Yeah, it's also it's not family friendly, by the way, animated though it is. There's a lot of alien and I believe human also breasticles and so forth going on in that movie. It's French. It is French.
Enough said. Cool. Juice, what you been watching?
I watched that new docuseries on Netflix that Michael had actually mentioned it last week on his What You Been Watching, the Night Stalker. It was only 4 episodes, I believe. They've been keeping them pretty short, pretty tight with these little docuseries. That's about what The Ripper was that I watched earlier this month. But this one was about Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, who was killing people in the 80s out in Los Angeles. Pretty infamous guy, really fucked up. And I do plan to do a mini cast on it because I cover a lot of these docuseries on Netflix, so that should probably be coming out hopefully maybe by the end of this month. It's the last week, but I'll try to get it out. But it was interesting because they do talk a lot about things that I don't think people know in just a general sense about his crimes, because you focus on the murders. But it's so wild because he was so sporadic with what he killed people with who he killed, ages, races. It always makes me think about Mindhunter and how they were talking about, following these patterns, and even watching The Ripper, where he was just killing these like younger women or like prostitutes. They typically follow some kind of trend. This dude was like all over the place. He just seemed to like he liked to kill people. It was crazy. So So it was an interesting docuseries. But yeah, there's no like rhyme or reason to any. He literally, and it was scary too because back in the 80s, but you just walk into a house, literally just walk in. Like, just like, I'm going to pick this house. He didn't know the people, didn't live in the neighborhood. He was just pick a neighborhood, pick a house, and kill the people that were in there. Just however
That's
he
how
wanted.
the Golden State Killer did it too.
Yeah, just however. So wild stuff. Also crazy bitches, man. As soon as that dude got locked up and was like, yep, he raped and murdered these like people in their house, like these bitches flashing their yabos, and one of them married him while he's in prison. Like crazy
It's
shit.
my boy Dick.
Yeah. Well, these women, they get crazy sometimes.
You know, it makes a compelling case for murder, doesn't it?
Wow.
So I watched that. I am still also working on Sweet Home, which is that Korean show I've talked about. So I'm still working through it. It's 10 episodes. Some of them are actually a little longer than an hour. So it's hefty. But that will not be coming out by the end of this month, but probably early next month for a mini review. But I am digging it. It's very stylized. Again, I said it kind of reminds me of Resident Evil. Somebody hit us up on Instagram and was talking about that, saying that even this is a Korean series that was inspired by a Japanese. Do you remember what was a Japanese show or something? Do you remember, Bob? You saw
Sweet
it.
Home?
I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
A Japanese movie or show or comic
I think
or
that was
something.
a Japanese movie.
Okay, yeah, but that inspired Resident Evil. So I'm saying like, oh, this
Right.
thing makes me think it's like, inspired by Resident Evil. The original Japanese is what inspired Resident Evil. So that was interesting. But I'll try to do some more research on that when I actually do a miniseries on it. I still got to finish it. I think I got like 2 or 3 episodes left. So it's good though. Very stylized, cool, interesting. I just gotta see how it wraps up though, see how I feel about it. But that's about all I've been watching. Just those 2 things. So
Tight.
Bob,
Yo.
what you been watching? Some Baby Blues?
Yes, but I'll get to those. I have been going steadily down Bob's Burgers. So like I'm just wrapping up season 4. I think I wrapped up season 4 today. I want to my goal is to get through them all. There's a Bob's Burgers movie supposed to be coming out this year. I think in April.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, assuming that it actually comes out because things keep getting pushed. But I think right now it's supposed to come out in April. So I want to revisit all the seasons prior to that. So the one of the most recent ones I watched was a Christmas episode from season 4. Which is I forget the title of it, but it's very much influenced by the movie Joyride.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the one with the trucker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the truck is the shape of a candy cane. Right, yeah. Yep. Yeah, the Belcher family goes out to buy a Christmas tree and they're terrorized by this guy driving around this big truck in the shape of a candy cane. And after watching that, I was like, fuck, I really want to watch Joyride. I hadn't seen Joyride in a few years. So I threw that on and the credits are rolling.
Oh my God.
And I always forget this, but Joyride was co-written and produced by J.J. Abrams.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, it's like this movie is incredible. It's such a good movie, man.
It is. I named
Joyride?
my car after
Yeah,
it.
I love it.
Incredible?
Yeah, I love that movie, dude.
Incredible
It's-
might be extreme.
I don't know.
I have a
It's solid.
fondness for it.
I don't know.
Sure.
I think it's pretty well crafted, man. It's got some solid acting. Steve Zahn is
Dude.
incredible because he's Steve Zahn. Paul Walker also great. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think the performances are good. It's a solid thriller. I don't.
I
really
do
have
love
any
Steve
complaints.
Zahn.
It's also very much a slasher movie, except it's a truck stalking you. It's a giant ass truck. You never actually see the truck driver. You don't know what he looks like. He could be a tiny little dude that's not very threatening, but he will run you over with his fucking truck, and that's scary.
Is it Powers Booth that does his voice, or is it somebody else entirely? I remember thinking at
No,
one point
it's
that it was, but I
the
thought I was wrong about
Same
that
dude from
eventually.
Silence of the Lambs. Oh, I always forget his name.
Oh,
What's the fucking
yeah.
Old Bill.
Yeah.
What is his fucking name?
Is she a big fat person?
Yeah, that guy. What is that dude's name?
Fuck, I cannot think of it.
I'm about
Rob,
to
you look it up.
Bob is failing us.
Yeah, I'm looking on IMDb. Fuck. Justin's gonna look that up. In the meantime, I'm gonna continue with what I've been watching. Just got one other movie that I wanted to mention. I revisited another banger. that is currently on Netflix. It's a movie called Catch Me If You Can.
Ted Levine.
Ted Levine.
Oh,
She a great
Ted
big,
Levine. Okay.
big fat person.
She
Candy,
a great big fat person.
candy cane.
He sounds like he's like Kevin McCallister's
McCallister.
talk boy. McCallister. Yeah, it's like Kevin McCallister's talk boy
The
set to
father.
slow. The ding dang dong fat person.
Is she a ding dang dong?
Damn, we haven't
Plaza
covered
Hotel?
Silence of the Lambs on here.
No, we haven't.
That's a fail.
But yeah, the only other movie I wanted to mention was Catch Me If You Can on Netflix currently. Steven Spielberg movie. Freaking Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks.
Good.
Christopher Walken kills this movie with his little two mice fall in a bucket of cream story. Shit's great.
Mice.
It's good shit.
Two mice fall into a bucket of cream.
I forgot
They
how.
make butter.
I love Randy Walken.
butter.
They make butter. This is getting really out of control. I'm not controlling this voice anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Based on a true story, this like young ass 16-year-old kid just makes a bunch of counterfeit checks, gets crazy rich, pretends that he's an airline pilot, pretends that he's a doctor, pretends he's a lawyer, and he just fools everybody.
True story.
FBI chases him down.
Story of my life.
Really, really interesting story. Great movie. Highly recommend watching that if you haven't.
I feel like one of our friends from high school that you lived with, I don't want to like throw anybody's name out there, but
Okay.
could have pulled off that like being an adult as a 16-year-old.
Oh,
Accurate.
yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
we all
talking
like
about.
everybody
Oh, yeah.
has that friend in high school who could definitely buy everyone beer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Had that friend for sure. That's really all I've been watching. That's all I want to mention. Let's go ahead and move into our final segment of the show, the Hotline Scream.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call and leave us a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We have 4 voicemails this week. We did pose a question last week. We were bringing back our Hotline Kinks segment. We're asking people, what gets you going? What gets you in the mood sexually? We got a couple responses to that, and a couple other people just calling in and say, "Hey, what's up?"
We're starting a database.
Yeah, no, we're not. I think first up, we're going to hear from Justin. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey guys, this is Justin. I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of the show. I've been listening to it for a very long time. It's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. Listen to you guys every day at work, and I just I've been waiting to say this for a while. This is directed directly at Juice. Halloween 2018 is the second best Michael Myers movie. Come at me. So that's it. Keep chilling, you guys.
Ooh, you gonna come at him, Juice?
Come at him.
Dude, I'm gonna jerk off till I come at you.
Oh God, yes,
Good Lord.
come with me.
Talking about
Hotline
Hotline Kinks.
Yeah.
I know how to spice it up.
Fuck.
That is incorrect.
Thanks for calling, Justin.
I it might make the top 5. I'd have to consider it, but 2 and 4 are better. 2 and
I mean,
4 are
I don't-
better.
It's tough to come at you when we don't know your argument.
It just
I
is
just think 2 and
the
4
number
are
2
just
spot.
significantly
No,
better.
I mean from Justin. Like it's
No, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
From my
I
opinion,
mean, that's a take.
like
Yeah.
if I just had like to just go off the dome, I would maybe it falls in 4th place.
Dude.
I mean, top 5
I mean-
probably, but not. It doesn't beat 2 and 4.
To-
1, 2, and 4.
To be fair, Halloween 2 does prominently feature a sandwich, but it is a ham sandwich.
None of that banh mi,
maybe
the
you're able
godless
to
banh mi
tolerate
sandwiches.
that
Maybe.
easier than the banh mi sandwich.
Maybe.
So,
Did they have a whole conversation about the ham sandwich?
They discuss it, don't they?
it was not discussed, but we do see
wasn't?
someone making it in real time.
Oh,
That's okay.
So I don't know.
that's okay.
It's okay to look at it, but don't talk about
There's
that
a whole
damn
episode
sandwich.
of there's a whole episode of binging with Babish in the middle of this movie, but
Dude,
it's
he's
still
just-
better than talking about banh mi's.
I want to see an episode of Babish influenced by the Halloween franchise. I want to see make a rat sandwich, Babish, please.
Yeah,
But I want it still moving. Can you make it while it's still
and
moving?
squealing.
Babish, if you know what you're doing, you can.
But
that is not that
anyways,
man's name.
thanks for the call though, Justin. We can disagree. But thanks for listening.
Justin,
Yeah.
call back next week and let us know what your stance is on it. Tell us a little bit more about it. I'm
well,
curious.
I think we know the stance, but
Yeah, it's good.
Well, no, tell us more about your reasoning.
Sure.
Shall we say?
But
sorry
I
for the
personally-
nomenclature.
Yeah, I personally going off the dome would put it maybe fourth place. I would say 1, 2, 4. I enjoy more, but that's just quick take.
Yeah, I think the highest it would go for me is 4, and that's being absurdly generous and not considering it every movie.
Yeah,
Just off the cuff.
yeah.
So
Same Z's. Actually, well, Michael Myers. I was like, I might put 3 above there, but Michael Myers in 3. So okay.
I might put it in third place, but I might have to really think about that. Yeah, it might clinch
And
third.
now, if we're talking about funniest, now there's an argument to be had there.
Yeah.
For show.
Oh no. Halloween 2018 in third spot. It's not funny, really. I mean, it's got some jokes.
I'm sorry. I was talking about Halloween.
3. Oh, okay, yeah. I got you. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for calling, Justin. Next up, I believe we're gonna hear from Cody. Let's hear what he has to say.
Yo, straight chillin' crew. This is Cody calling in for the first time for some Hotline Kinks. I'm the residential Little Debbie vendor, Mr. Snack Cakes, if you will. I gotta say my biggest kink is I like feet. I do. They gotta be clean, and I like painted toenails. So, that's it. Keep
There
chilling.
we go. Honesty. That's what we're after here.
Yeah.
Trying to get to the bottom of people's kinks around here.
I like Lil Debbie's and I like painted toenails. That's what I like.
Dude, I love that we have a Mr. Snack Cakes.
Mr. Snack Cakes.
Cake.
Yeah.
I got a
Wasn't
snack take here for you.
It was G Baby that was saying he also liked feet too. Like he liked when the nails were painted real clean and everything. Right?
I think so.
I think it was G Baby.
Let's go ahead and talk about it.
That's
some
a
more.
pretty common. That's a pretty
Yeah,
common one.
yeah.
It's actually, I know, like we haven't spilled our kinks necessarily, but I'm not like sure like nice feet are nice, like they're good, but it's not something like gets me riled. It's
Yeah.
I'm not riled.
It's not
up
something-
over the feet.
There's no fantasy there, yeah.
No.
But I wouldn't like ugly feet.
Yeah,
so much.
sure. Yeah,
Like,
it's not like I want them all gnarled up or anything.
it's not to a detriment.
Yeah,
and I mean, and it would take a lot, because I'm just not interested in looking at the feet, I guess, in general.
Yeah.
But
Randy
more
don't
power
like
to
feet
you,
or
buddy.
buttholes. We've found out.
I really just don't like women. Is what the problem is. Just don't like them. Send them back.
Hell
No.
feet.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, Cody. Thanks
yeah.
for that.
Thanks
Yeah.
for calling in, man.
Thank
Good. Hey, calling in for your first time on the Hotline Kinks. That takes some cojones.
Yeah.
That's bold.
We might
Yeah.
have missed a scotch of it just because we are having some internet issues, but it was like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
tops,
I think we
so-
got the gist.
Okay.
So,
Next up, I believe we're going to hear from. Speaking of Jim, we're going to hear from Jim. Let's see what GB
Oh,
has
Jim.
to say.
Oh, Jim.
Here comes the hotline kink. In the words that Werner Herzog impression. What's up, gang? Old G. Quaid's Herzog was pretty solid. I'm not sure I can hold a candle to that, but here goes. I would like to see the baby. That's the best I got. Calling in for this week's topic. Speaking of kinks, haven't picked up any new ones other than old G baby and G wifey are trying for another little G baby. So right now, if it ain't raw dog, nah dog, no bag. I've also been in the lab working on a modified version of the shocker that I'm calling the Trident for now. But I guess in the interest of truth, I won't elaborate. To Soju's question, in terms of fear of death by railing, on a scale of 1 to 10, I say I'm about a 2. I say fuck around to find out. I'll get a railing in that hard scarf and bite down and pray for lockjaw. So, anywho, keep chilling, crew, and let me give a big old G size. Hey, yeet.
Jim bringing the heat this week. I love that one.
Wow.
Oh, gee, baby. He's
So many questions about the Trident. So many
In
questions.
the lab.
Primarily, what the fuck is that?
Working on a modified version of the shocker.
Also, the Werner Herzog impression, I thought he was going to describe his kink, and then he said in Werner Herzog's voice, what was it? I would like to see the baby. I was like, what is your kink, buddy? What's going on?
No.
Are we about to be on a watch list?
Whoa. Got to be careful with the old Trident. If it's anything like the shocker and you're trying for a baby, you can only, you got to stay away from one of those spots.
Trident, I'm assuming the Trident, this is just my wild guess off the dome. 2 thumbs, 1 cock. That's what's going on. That's the Trident. Put it in however you can. Just
Randy's shooting
make
from
it
the
work,
hip.
designers.
Sure,
We
just
got nothing to
shooting
go
from
on.
the
There's too much
hip.
couth in this episode.
Randy
I guess.
hasn't thought about
Man.
this at all.
Shooting from the pelvis over here, Randy. God damn.
If I just had to imagine immediately what it could be, then maybe this
If
is
I had to. Trident to my head.
I'm going through the Rolodex of things I've seen in my time,
Whoa.
and Trident ain't one of them. I'm having
Not yet.
to coagulate
You haven't
several
lived,
ideas
Randy.
here.
You haven't
Yeah.
lived
I guess
a
not.
vibrant life.
Yep. You know what they say. If it ain't raw dog,
Rigatoni.
Nah dog. Also rigatoni.
Yeah, dude, no sack.
No. No bag. I think sack, yes. He's trying to make a
They're
child.
synonyms, baby. Do what you got to do.
Thanks for calling, Jim. Always good to hear from you. We got one more voicemail. Next up, we're hearing from the man of the hour himself, Hydraberg. Let's hear what he has to say.
What up, boys? It's your boy Hydraberg. Just calling in. You guys are doing my Patreon pick this week, Timecrimes. It's a pretty good movie. It's not that well known that I know of. I only learned about it maybe within the last year or so, but I watched it once, and I was like, I put it on the list. I was like, you know what, this might be a good go-to for the boys, and it turns out it is. I don't know how you reviewed it, but I enjoyed it. Decent movie. Shot pretty well. You know, it's all in one location mainly, except for the lab, but it's pretty cool. I was wondering, I don't know how you're going to rule it, but I was thinking that this might be a time travel Cooter, possibly. I don't know. He's a little Cooter. So makes the lady take her shirt off, I believe, and the tire is pretty atrocious. I'm sure you guys will figure it out. I mean, that's what you get the big bucks for. Also, last week we had, was that the first robot Cooter? I wasn't sure. I was thinking it was the first robot Cooter. And then I was like, oh, what about that little fucker BB from, Deadly Friend or whatever? He was pretty cootery. But I think you guys gave it to the dad in that one because, she had like that abusive dad or whatever, and he was definite cooter. Anyway, I'm sure you guys will sort it out. I hope it's a good conversation. Last week's episode was great, by the way, and welcome back to the land of the living. I'm glad you guys are back. Hope everybody else got out of hell. Awesome. Drag race. Anyway, you guys take care, right? And
I
keep
think
chilling.
he was interrupted by an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race at the end there.
I think so. I think he was. Either that or Sea-Doo was taking off and going buck wild. It's one or the other.
I don't think that was the first robot Cooter. I think we've had them before.
We definitely had
Alien.
Alien, yeah.
Well, we
talked about that,
considered
too.
the one in Alien. I think we might have landed on the company ultimately because he was
Maybe. We might
made
have,
by
yeah.
the company.
We might have.
But even maybe like Alien Covenant popped into my mind. I feel like there have been a robot Cooter before. But
We've done
can't
almost over
confirm.
300 episodes. I find it hard to believe that in all that time there has been no robot Cooter. But
yeah, I don't.
this
think
might
it
be the
was
first time travel Cooter. It might be.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was wondering,
if we put it on
so-
the spreadsheet, then we'd know. But none of us.
We can only
Actually,
do so much.
That's on my to-do list.
I put the Rotten Tomatoes, who wins Rotten Tomatoes on there. Like,
Did you? Wow.
Oh yeah, years like when I first presented it, and we've just never done anything with that part of the spreadsheet.
It is there.
I tried to
though.
keep up with it for like 2 episodes, and then like it just fell off the map entirely.
Oh,
So,
that would be good info. Maybe if I go
Yeah.
back for the Cooters, I'll consider adding that one.
do it, dude. Do it.
see.
We'll listen to every
see.
episode. You
We'll
do
see.
that for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to listen to the whole episode.
Hey man, however much is too much. That's what I say.
That is what you
That
say.
is- That's how Randy feels for sure. Cool. Yeah, thanks for calling, Hyderberg. Again,
Yeah.
thanks for picking this movie, man. You always seem to pick pretty interesting stuff that like none of us have ever seen, and is also usually pretty cool. So we appreciate that for sure.
I was worried with the title of this movie that it was going to be another intentional stinker to get us riled, but no. Heidelberg's bringing the heat.
I don't know. Maybe the fans want to go back and find all the Cooters from the movies.
That's true.
Hey, do you not have the spare cash to contribute to our Patreon? We'll do some data mining for us instead.
If you do that, send all of that to Justin only, and let him sort
and
through
make it.
Well, sure.
Do it in about 36 files.
Yeah, don't make it very cohesive at all. Don't make it easy to go through.
Make it as difficult as possible, please.
Yes, please. And thank you in advance. But yeah, that's going to do it for us this week at Straight Chilling. If you would like to call in and let us know what your specific kink is, hit us up at 904-638-3231. If you'd like to keep it anonymous, you don't have to give your name. Also, you can just send us an email if you'd like us to read what your kink is for you, and we won't
Rob
share your
has done
name.
that before.
It doesn't have to be kinks either, guys.
No, yeah, it doesn't. But that's we're bringing it back. We're gonna roll with it for maybe 2-3 weeks, whatever. I don't know. We'll see.
Anytime we don't have a
2-3 weeks.
That's what we did last time. People kept calling
it.
in.
Yeah, people need to know. But
Yeah.
also, too, most of the time we roll with it when we don't have any better prompts.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a few months, 6 months at least. I
Yeah,
think.
it's been about 6 months,
Yeah.
I feel like.
But yeah, if you have something else to say, you can still call in and say it. You know, if you don't want to talk about kinks, that's cool. No problem. We are definitely not here to voicemail shame in any way,
No
shape, or
kink
form.
shaming. That's what the boys live by.
That is true.
I'll shame a voicemail from time to time.
Well, we'll shame you back, Randy. No, we won't. 'Cause
Sweet.
We don't shame. But yeah, call in, leave us a voicemail. We'll play it next week. We're gonna be back next week with a brand new show. We're gonna be talking about a new release of 2021. This movie is called Synchronic. This is a Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead joint. It is, you can buy it digitally right now. You can rent it digitally on Tuesday, and you can also buy it on Blu-ray and DVD on Tuesday. So it's on VOD and disc, anywhere and everywhere. Slam your eyeballs into that. Get ready for next week's show, Synchronic. Until then,
Synchronic.
please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email to our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations, just hit me up on one of those social media outlets and I'll send you a link to join in. I think that's going to do it for us. Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Game over.